There's a certain point where you're going to shift to owning your own property. My name is Damon Brown of DamonBrown.net. My thing is helping you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, or otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. Today we're going to talk about why I decided to permanently take my business off of Facebook. Now, Facebook happens to be a hot thing right now. You can apply this to any other social media though. I knew that in December, I believe of 2019, I shut it down. I was actually not one of the first people, but I was early on Facebook, mostly because of my friends in Silicon Valley were telling me to get on there. So I think I got on there around 2006 or so. And then by 2019, shut it down. I was done. I think my last day on there was December 3rd. But before then, I was very active on there. And I think there's some big lessons, 3 in particular. If you're thinking about having your business and putting your energy into a social media platform. Number 1, when it came to Facebook, I realized that there was a low return on investment, What I mean by that is treating your time and your other resources just like you would money. So if you have a bad investment and you're putting all this money into it, you're gonna stop at a certain point. To give you some quick backstory, when I did my first major book, that was in 2008, I was just moving to Silicon Valley. That was around the time that Facebook was really starting to jump off, and I had been on there for a year or 2. I used Facebook to leverage getting my book out and connect with people nationally and later on internationally, because it was a small book, it was a small publisher. We didn't have the bandwidth financially or otherwise to put me on book tour. And so I wanted to find another way to connect with this larger audience. Back then it worked great. Fast forward, I don't know, last 2-3 years, where I've come out with my book, Bring Your Worth. That came out just over 2 years ago. So it was February of 2019, earlier that year, before I quit Facebook. I went ahead and got involved with Facebook to launch this book. There wasn't a whole lot going on. And we can get into that, we'll get into that in the next point. But one of the things that happened is that there ended up being a bigger gap between the people I wanted to serve and the people that I was actually serving, if that makes sense. Let me try that again. There was a big gap between me and the people that I wanted to serve. And that gap got wider, actually because of the decisions that the platform was making. So when I did my thing in 2008, again with my first major book, then I put a message out there and it will get to everyone within my network. Then within that decade or so, then there started to be a gulf. And then they started asking, hey, chip in $1, you can reach more people. So they were actually what's called throttling the amount of people that I could contact. But it's not unique to Facebook. I don't want to just throw them under the bus. You find that with a lot of social networks where they'll get to a certain scale and then suddenly it starts messing with the spigot. And when that happens, you have to decide if you want to be involved. Now, if you're already able to impact your audience and connect with them, regardless of the changes that are being made, good for you. But if you're not feeling that with a platform, especially a new platform you're getting involved in, you might want to think about how much time you're investing in that. I'd rather put my investment in time and energy into other things, which I'll get into in a second. Number 2, as I mentioned, I was being disconnected from the very people that I serve. I like the spigot analogy because at any time they can turn up or turn down the amount of people you're connecting. Imagine like having a brick and mortar store and then the city or the landlord that you're renting the storefront from or whatever, at any time they can go and say, okay, only 5 people can be on this sidewalk to walk by your place, and only like 1 or 2 people can actually come in the store. But if you pay me a little bit extra rent this month, if you pay a little bit more extra taxes to the mayor or to the city or to the state or whatever, then maybe you can have 10 people walk past and 5 people come into the store. That's what's happening on social media. Think about that. These are things that we would not accept, we would not be comfortable with. I know people that have brick and mortar places, they would not go for this at all. But we go for that every single day with social media. And that's becoming a lot more intense as we become more independent. I know one of the telltale signs, which always gave me shivers, was probably about 5-6 years ago, shortly after I left Silicon Valley. And there would be new startup businesses. And it was after I became an entrepreneur, but before I started coaching. So I couldn't give advice like that because I wasn't quite mature enough. But I knew something was wrong because I would see people who would be starting up businesses and their website would be just their Facebook page. What if something happens to Facebook? Then suddenly you can't connect with your customers. I went through this experience. Luckily, not that, because I started my business way earlier in the era where Facebook actually wasn't around when I started my business, so it wasn't even an issue like that. I'm glad that wasn't even a choice for me, as it was for a lot of folks that have been around for a decade or two. But my whole point is that there's a certain point where you're going to shift to owning your own property. So going from what I call a renter to being your own landlord, owning your own stuff. As I started to get off of Facebook, I beefed up my newsletter, and that's at joindamon.me. Joindamon.me is my newsletter. I do it it arrives every Wednesday at 5:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, because I'm over here in Vegas. Every Wednesday, now it's been like 5 or 6 years consistently, and I was doing it much more erratically before, but consistently for several years now. Y'all have learned to expect that. No one's going to turn off the email. If the email's being turned off, there's something very wrong. And it's something wrong with everybody's email. So that email is mine. You're getting that directly from me. If you have a problem, or if you really enjoy the message and the conversations that are happening at joindamon.me every Wednesday at 5:55 a.m., you can reply right back to me. There is no middleman or middlewoman or entity saying you can only access me so much. I can only access you so much. That's not even part of the conversation. Over the past year, my email list has doubled, thanks to y'all getting more involved with it. But part of it is because I'm spending less time on social media and more building my own community through joindamon.me. Another thing that I'm doing is, in a meta way, talking to you right now. If you're hearing this for the first time, or you're hearing it as a first run, as a premiere, then you're probably catching it on YouTube. My channel at youtube.com/BrownDamon. You can like, you can comment, you can share, and most importantly, you can subscribe. You can do that right now. And the YouTube guidelines are so broad that I don't have to worry about me being cut off from you. This is about as close as I can get, aside from building videos on my own website. This is as close as I can get to having my own channel. That's why I'm building up this YouTube community with you in mind. That's why I'm spending hours and hours on content, having these conversations that are usually reserved for my books or for my one-on-one coaching sessions, which cost a few $100s an hour. I'm giving them to you so that we can build this community. I'm not depending on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or TikTok or Snapchat. I can keep going. You could be listening to this video or watching this video 10 years from now. Replace the names, and it's gonna be the same conversation. I was around when MySpace was popping. I remember when Friendster started, which was around the time I was in grad school. Same conversations. So again, if Facebook isn't popping right now when you're listening to this, then just replace it with another name, right? You always want to be the landlord. I am the landlord of joindamon.me. I am the landlord of my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BrownDamon. Slight rental fee over to YouTube, but that's pretty much it. But definitely the joindamon.me, 100% mine. And it's about getting as close to ownership as possible, so you don't have to worry about that. As I've talked about in other videos, particularly the ones about social media, there were times, particularly over the past year, where the conglomerate of Facebook, WhatsApp, it's not a city in Compton, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram were completely down. There were times when Twitter was completely down. There were times when LinkedIn is down. And I actually enjoy LinkedIn quite a bit. There were times when those guys were down during a pandemic. My book came out, Built From Now. This book came out January 28th, 2021. What if I was launching a book only on social media and it happened to be the time when it was down? I would have lost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars worth of sales and opportunities. Instead, I had a launch on Instagram. I had a launch on Amazon Live, and you can check it out at amazon.com/shop/BrownDamon. I have an Amazon Live that I do there that comes over to this YouTube channel. I have my email list. They learned about it and pre-ordered it like 6 months before it hit the store. There's so many different ways that you can connect with people that have nothing or little to do with social media. That's you putting the keys, not even the keys, putting someone else in the driver's seat. Don't worry about the keys. I'm bad with analogies right now. Forgive me. Putting someone else in the driver's seat and saying, take me where I need to go. Instead, you need to be in the driver's seat. So even if you're working with social media, and there's nothing wrong with it, you can catch me on the social media. But I have my email list, I have this YouTube channel, I have my Amazon Live stuff, I have a lot of stuff that's going on that has nothing to do with leaning completely on third parties to connect with y'all. The third thing is how much of a distraction social media can be. And this has to do with your productivity. Cal Newport, I recently interviewed him for the Bring Your Worst show. You can catch it in the links, but it happened about 3 or 4 weeks ago based on his new book, A World Without Email. Now, we talked a little bit about social media along with email, and the challenge is that we're not used to working in silence anymore. Back when I first started writing many, many years ago, then the internet was in its infancy. Smartphones didn't exist. I swear they didn't exist, right? People were still using home phones. And I'm not that old, so we're talking a few decades ago. There was no iPhone. There was barely Apple because, Steve Jobs at the time was kicked out of it. Like Apple wasn't even popping like that. So you had the opportunity to go to the library as a writer. You had the opportunity to go to the library and just write, or be in your home office or in your kitchen or whatever and just write. And that's it. If you want to be distracted, you go outside for a walk, or you call a friend, from your wall phone. The phones used to be in the wall phone, and say, hey, let's grab a coffee or a drink or something, right? That was the distraction. As Cal argues in it's a really good book, A World Without Email, now we have all these inputs. And it becomes worse with social media, and this is my layer on it. It becomes worse with social media because then suddenly you feel like you need to be posting on Facebook, posting on Instagram, posting on TikTok every single day to make an impact on your business. Do you feel like that's marketing? It might be, but so is sending an email to a client that you haven't heard from in a while and seeing if you want to work together and how you might be able to support them on their next act. Marketing is also giving a phone call to someone, I guess that'll be marketing, giving a phone call to someone and saying, hey, how can I support your business? I have a new book coming out. I'm happy to give it to you for free. That's marketing too. And so we're conflating social media with marketing. It can be an aspect of marketing, but they're not the same thing. Again, I come from an era before social media. So we were doing marketing without Facebook, without Twitter. We're doing that kind of marketing back when Mark Zuckerberg was in elementary school, I swear. And so we're confusing those two. Because of that, we're looking at that intimacy. We can connect with people. We can go ahead and say, I could do a YouTube video and connect with thousands of y'all. I can do my weekly newsletter, Wednesday at 5:55 a.m. over at joindamon.me and connect with a lot of y'all on an intimate level. Or I can do a quick social media post. And as we start to look at social media as marketing and just that being the only option that we have, then we start to dilute the impact that we're having, because we could have a more intimate and connected connection with the people that we're trying to serve. Furthermore, that time we're doing the next social media post, that's like a death by 1,000 cuts. And that quick, pithy post, you do a few of them a day, suddenly that's minutes, if not hours. And that's when you could be actually doing your work. So there's a distraction element of it. And I have to say, I'm approaching a year and a half off Facebook, and I am happy about it. Especially, I left it just before our pandemic year started. And whew. So as far as mental health, I'm so happy that I was able to avoid a lot of stuff that y'all on Facebook are going through. You have my sympathy and my empathy. I'm glad I left when I did. But again, it's not personal against Facebook. I just know Facebook isn't the place for me. And more importantly, it's not the place for my business. Go through that evaluation. You don't need to be everywhere at once. My impact is through this YouTube channel. My impact is through joindamon.me, my weekly newsletter. You can sign up there. My impact is through builtfromnowquiz.com, based on my new book, Built From Now. It's a free quiz that'll tell you your best resources. And my impact is through my ink column and a couple other things that I do. Ink is at inkdamonbrown.com. That's what I do. And as the world starts to open up, then I'll be doing more in-person keynotes. I'll be having coffees and drinks with people. I still look forward to that. And that will be part of how I impact people. But Facebook ain't it. I think you really need to think about if that platform is serving you in the way that you think it is. If you want more insight into maximizing your resources, you you can take the aforementioned quiz. It's my favorite word, aforementioned quiz, at buildfromnowquiz.com. It's based on my new book, Build From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World. It's a free quiz. It's multiple choice, like 3-4 questions. It takes you 2 minutes. Almost 1,000 of y'all have taken it, which I appreciate. And I want to give you this gift so you can know what your best resources are, so you're not wasting your time, wasting your energy, and all the other resources that we all have. Life is short. Let me help you maximize the time that you've got as a business owner and elsewhere. If you're really digging and appreciating this content, be sure to like, share, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. When you subscribe, that lets me know that you're really liking the content and that you like the direction things are going. If you had some feedback and you want me to tackle certain things, throw them into the comments. Throw a like in there, share with people that need to hear this. Again, this is my coaching. I usually charge a few $100s an hour. I charge several $1,000s for a keynote. This is the stuff and game that I'm giving to you for free. And so if there's people that you feel as though need to hear this, share it with them. And more importantly, if it resonates with you, be sure and subscribe at whatever platform you happen to be at. Until next time, remember that you can always bring your worth and that you can always build from now. Take care.